You are listening to Therapeutic Brass Tacks by Bruyere. So today we're going to touch on childhood trauma. For so many of us, we think that trauma equals physical abuse, mental and emotional abuse, yelling and screaming in the household, maybe a parent who is dependent on a substance like drugs or alcohol. But this is not necessarily true. In the work that I do, I see a lot of emotional trauma for our childhood experiences being based on things like being invalidated, dismissive comments, places where you put your emotions and they are told to just be positive, stay happy, do the best you can with what you have. Constantly telling our children to dial their emotions back and not having any sort of adult help them regulate what their huge emotions actually are. This is something that is also trauma in childhood. In our formative years, the things that we need the most are affirmations, validations, and we need to understand that our children need to be heard and seen. So many of our children are constantly being told, no, you need to just calm down. You need to stop overthinking. You are overthinking this situation, and that is on you. And then also, there's affirmations that need to be told. Our children need to feel supported in everything that they think and everything that they feel because they are young and they are learning as they go. So when someone, a child in their formative years, or even teenage years, or even adults for that matter, are not validated and they don't have the resources and the tools to understand their emotions, hearing these things like stay positive, oh, stop what you're doing right now. Stop being somebody who is overly emotive. Stop doing this, that, or the other is hurting them in so many ways that are unforeseen. And those ways that are unforeseen is that in the future, they don't know how to self regulate. All that they know is that when they went to somebody that they looked up to, or they felt strongly about, or they believed had all of the answers, and of course they didn't have all the answers, but they were not validated in those moments, and they felt like they were taking care of themselves. So, when we talk about childhood trauma, sometimes what it actually looks like is going to someone who's loved and respected and having them tell them to dial it back, having them tell them they are not regulating themselves and what is their problem, not affirming them, not validating them. And validation is a huge thing that I want to widely discuss as we go through these podcasts, because validation is what honestly makes a strong, well-rounded person, especially a well-rounded child. If you ever look at children and how they're succeeding in their education, their social activities, their emotion, and their regulation, it is typically because they have a parent or guardian or caregiver behind them that makes sure that they always know that their emotions are safe, supported, and affirmed. If we do not do this for our children, then we leave them in a space that has a lot of negative space, which means that they have to learn on their own. They have to teach themselves on their own. And how they do that is through basically a survival mechanism. They start to tell themselves, I can't depend on anyone else. I don't know where to go. I don't have anyone who listens or hears or sees me, and I don't feel seen or supported. So that's when they start to self regulate. And they usually do that through survival mechanisms, which in later life, when they become adults, will possibly turn into defense mechanisms, will turn into defensiveness towards their partners, towards their coworkers, towards anybody that they deal with on a day-in basis throughout their lives. And they might even shut down. They might shut down completely. They might emotionally be unavailable to the people who actually are there for them, to listen to them and to nurture them. They might see that as something that they've never understood and are not capable of grasping that they're not there for them without an agenda. And it becomes scary to them because they don't know what it really looks like to have someone stand up for them, to affirm them, to make them feel as if they have a support system. So childhood trauma sometimes looks like a father who comes home and he's tired from his work day, and the child will say, "Hey, Daddy, can you look at this thing I just did? I'm so proud of it." And he says, "No, no, 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 no. I've been so busy all week. I don't have time for that right now. You're just going to have to wait until the weekend." And it might seem very simple to the average person that we're all trying to just find our ways to make the day in and the day out work. But to a child in their formative years, that looks like, I don't matter. He doesn't care. He doesn't even wonder if I'm happy or sad or mad or glad. He doesn't really even want to show me any support for the thing right now that I'm incredibly proud of. The same thing happens with mothers who are overextended and mothers who are going through their own emotional needs that are being unmet. Oftentimes, our children do not understand that in those moments, mommy's not overextended. Mommy is just not paying attention to me, doesn't care about what's important to me. All of these things can actually equal out to be some form of childhood trauma to our children. Specifically, if our children are not hugged when they're sad, if our children are told to just buck up, little soldier, you've got this, you're good, you're cool, without the solid background of being hugged and told it's okay to feel what you feel. These things are so important to our children, and what we do not understand is that it often equals trauma. And it can be emotional trauma. People will say, and you see it all over social media, your parents are not responsible for the person that you turned out to be. And unfortunately, that is a farce, and it is incredibly untrue. We brought these children into the world, and they have to have the support system behind them in order to become well-rounded, functioning people in the world who knows that no matter what they do, they can do it. And without that support and without the affirmations, the physical affection of hugs and supports and kisses when they're crying and they're really upset about something that most parents sometimes will think is completely ridiculous, it's not ridiculous to the child. The child is going through something and they need to have that affirmation and that validation. Validation is the most important thing that you can give to your child. It is an emotional support system that will last for generations and will not trickle down into the next generation. If you actually can give it to them, you can stop and halt everything to do it and give it to them and make sure that they have it. The thing with emotions is that they're hard for everybody. So when children are going through very hard emotions, it is definitely true that if you're going through your own, it's hard to sometimes navigate through so many emotions coming through for you. However, when it comes to the children, you have to stop everything and make sure that they are heard and seen, validated, and affirmed. And that comes through physical affections like hugs and holding them and regulating them and making sure that they feel safe, safe and secure. Because if we do not raise safe and secure children, they do not become safe and secure adults. And then they carry this on into their future life where they are non-committal people. They're emotionally unavailable. They don't know how to handle conflict. They do not know how to handle criticism. And they suffer throughout their entire life by just putting this guard up in the survival mode around them at a constant level because they're so afraid that they're going to still be that 5-year-old child who went to their parent and their parent said, just be positive. Their parent said, you can do this. It's totally fine. Their parent said, stop crying. Oh my goodness, you're being so overly emotional right now. Calm down or I'll give you something to cry about. There are so many examples of this that have gone on with our children throughout the years and that we have endured with our parents and our grandparents. And again, our parents endured it. So, we just kept trickling down that line. Here's the deal. Childhood trauma comes from being dismissed, being told your feelings do not matter. Right now, they're too big, they're silly, they're ridiculous. They come from feeling the need for human connection and the parent not having time or not even wanting to deal with it and shoving them away. The conflict and the trauma comes from having a parent who thinks that tough love is a great way to manage self-control and regulation, which is 100% untrue, by the way. And then just telling them, no, we're going to set you up to do something different because you can't refocus and you're hyper focusing on this thing that doesn't even matter. And basically shutting our children down to never know who they can go to or what they can say and what's even valid for them. They need to constantly have a person who stops everything and listens, validates, gives affirmations, gives physical affection, makes them feel supported, nurtured, safe, and regulated. And without those things, our children do not grow up to be well-rounded people. They just do not. We can self-regulate and we can teach ourselves and we can try so hard in our capacity to not go and repeat the same cycles that we did not like, but they will show up again and again and again. And they'll show up in multiple facets. And there are ways where even the most regulated people still struggle because they end up enduring things that they don't need to endure because of the fact that they did endure so many things in their childhood that were not addressed, were not taken care of, were not affirmed, and most importantly, not validated. If you do nothing for your children, at all, you have to validate your kids. Yes, you are a good parent if you put a roof over their head, and you are a good parent if you feed them, and you are a good parent if you make sure they get to school every day. But that is not the only job that you have. You have a whole other job out there because they look at you for all of these things. And I'm going to repeat them one more time. It is affirmation, validation, affection, and support. We will go into our next episode very shortly, probably within a week or two. I'm trying to gain some traction and do episodes so that we can have a little bit more content before I actually launch this podcast. However, I would like for you to like and subscribe, and then also to leave your messages in the comments, and then to know that we have so many amazing topics coming up. So stay tuned.